Welcome to the Friday Power Lunch, a weekly show amplifying the voices of the Virginia grassroots. Each week, we provide engaging conversations about politics, culture, and women making change. Produced by the unstoppable women of Network Nova, our motto is, when we vote, we win. The Friday Power Lunch is recorded before a live Zoom audience. Follow us on social media. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and show us some love and become a sponsor through Patreon. The Friday Power Lunch. Badass women getting things done.
All right. Get in the room, everyone. Happy effing Friday. Let's talk some turkey. Feeling pretty good. There is lots to be loud and proud about. And yes, we are days away from pumpkin pie, traveling to see family. Some of us may be running from family, but either way, today there is so much to think about as these election results roll in. And you know what? Dems hold the Senate. Georgia heads to a runoff election. Republican takes the House by a slim majority. Leader Pelosi steps down after a historic run as leader and passes the baton to a new generation. And a new era begins for Democrats to build in as we defied the odds. And, we witnessed a historic performance by Dems in the midterms. The bar's kind of low, but we didn't have any violent mobs. The people overall voted against the extreme MAGA election deniers. And more importantly, no new fascist secretaries of state. Hey, that's a lot to celebrate. But all this does take a toll on the folks doing the work. The activists, you, the folks in the room. As Aretha Franklin said, she said, I ain't no psychiatrist, maybe not a doctor with a degree, but it don't take too much IQ to see that all this predictions of doom and gloom and the campaign sending us negative messages, the media doom piling on, at times you felt like a punching bag. And I think it's about time that we tell the political consultant class, the campaigns, the elected, different people in this space to rethink how they behave to win. And that means us also kind of taking that responsibility to push back, rather than, demoralizing us to try to get us to take action, maybe inspire. We know it works. There was a great article that one of the person on our team, Michelle McKinney, shared with us about reframing America. Antonia Scatton wrote, How to Cure Political Burnout. It's an ugly war, but we have to keep our spirits up. And in this past election, she said it was like walking away from a bad car accident with only a scratch and you're happy you survived. And that's like what it felt like. But we want more hope, more guts, more emotional support, and yes, more fun. We want enthusiasm for our brand, and that will get results. You do want to be on the winning team, and that's exactly why we're here together in this community talking some turkey today, because being with your crew is essential to staying in this game, because political burnout is real, and fun is essential. So don't forget, this is about you, what you did. And if no one said it to you yet, or you've heard it once or twice, let me say thank you. Thank you for all you've done to save democracy. Many of you have been donating, knocking doors, making calls, texting, writing letters and postcards. And in short, you showed up for democracy. And that really is the first step. We won. And it's glad to be on this team. So feel good about taking some much needed time for yourself, extra time on the couch, maybe even an extra slice of pie, because you deserve it. So sit back and enjoy today's show. We have a lot to talk about. Let's get it started. Hello, welcome everybody. It is Friday, November 18th. Welcome to the Friday Power Lunch. I'm Catherine White, your host, amplifying, bringing you the guests, the issues, the action, amplifying the voice of the grassroots to get things done, and of course, to make politics fun. So I'm so excited to bring up some of our guests today. We're going to talk some turkey. Our theme is talking turkey about elections with out-of-box thinkers. And let's see, who do we have so far?
So far, let's start with Randy.
Oh, great. Okay, good. Because I know we have some delay with some of our guests. So let's start with a real out-of-the-box thinker, Randy. Pherson. Currently, you're co-founder and managing partner at Pherson Associates. First of all, welcome back. Ooh, my screen's making some funny stuff. How are you doing, Randy?
I'm doing great. I'm really enjoying being able to come back and join this conversation with a lot of very happy people, and deservedly so.
Yeah, you know what? It was a lot of fun because we had you on back after your article you wrote in April, May about some of these drivers you were seeing. And so I'm really excited about what that looks like, you know, to you now and what you have to do to say about that. But overall, are you doing pretty good? Are you ready for Thanksgiving? You got your turkey ready, or what are you doing?
We got the turkey ready. We've got all the family coming over. We'll have a nice celebration and basically connect.
Hey,
And talk a little politics. We have a rule that we can always talk politics as long as we inform each other and we don't get into arguments.
That's good. No one's throwing the mashed potatoes.
Yeah, and we have a complete spectrum of viewpoints within our family.
Oh, so that's great.
It gets exciting.
You run the gamut. That's all. Right. That's awesome. So
people cry only now and then, but then we dab their tears and we say, let's talk a little bit more and let's figure out how you see it and how we see it and where we think we're headed.
No election deniers.
No. Well, 2.5.
That's not bad. All right. Yeah. Okay. So thank you, Randy. I'm real excited and Fennell will be interviewing you. So thank you for coming and thank you for everybody in the room today. And I don't know if Aaron is here.
Aaron has just entered the room. So we're
I got to figure out what my screen is doing. I think somebody in heaven's trying to alert me about something. I'll fix that in a little bit. It's really annoying. I apologize for that. Aaron,
Aaron, let's get you to turn on your video and make you a co-host. All right, Aaron, great. Can you turn on your audio and turn on your video?
Okay.
You know what? He hasn't. So let's go ahead and go to Rachel and then we'll come back.
Oh, is she here?
Yes, she is. So we're going to.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Okay, talk about badass. We're going to be talking about that today. Rachel, the Doc BITECOFER is here nationally. Oh my gosh, it's so good to see you. Let me just, again, there you are getting set up. Awesome. Nationally recognized election forecaster, analyst, pollster, and political strategist and badass. You see Rachel, as Fennell Norton said, when she sees Rachel on MSNBC, she stops everything and goes right to watch. How the heck are you? Uh-oh. We need you to unmute. Can you reach over?
Yep, I'm unmuted now. So I can tell you guys how fantastic I am and just absolutely delighted that we're sitting in an America where we have a really good starting position to save democracy in 2024, because if that 2024 presidential election doesn't go our way, that's it.
That's it. So we're just going to eat pumpkin pie all day long, and that's about it. Well, what I was telling Randy Pherson is here also. We talked to him like you months ago, looking at some of the drivers, some of the predictions that maybe people were making. So I'm really excited that we'll be talking about this later in the show with you. And when Randy has his segment too, to unpack what you saw, like what you're seeing and what the outcome is. I'm really excited to hear from you. So thank you for being here.
Thanks.
All right. Yeah. So you can hold still, relax a little bit. We'll get to you in a little bit. So if you want to kick back. All right.
No worries.
Yeah, no worries. All right.
So Aaron had technical problems. So let's go on with the show.
Well, let me just say that Aaron is our third guest. We always like to have a candidate. He's a consul. I'll just say that he's an at-large council member from Virginia Beach. He is running in State District 7. That's so important to win, to really hold that Senate especially for women's reproductive rights. So we're happy we can get to him later once he fixes his mechanics, as we say. And so let's get back. Sorry, this has been a lot of fun. Talking about housekeeping. Glad you're in the room. Welcome to the Power Lunch. Network Nova, we're a bunch of badass women that produce this show. We do it weekly, and we have some rules in the room. If you're in the chat, keep it friendly. Don't get nasty. If you do, the bouncer up there will bounce you out. You know, Ambassador Buzz loves to hit that button, but please keep it real. Just don't get nasty. And tell us what kind of pumpkin pie you're having or not. What kind of pie are you having for Thanksgiving? I always love to see what's your favorite side dish, macaroni and cheese, stuffing. Let us know. All right. And then our favorite part, stick around for the after chat. After 1 o'clock, we love to get to it. So please stick around for that. That's after 1 o'clock. And our big announcement. Let's hear it for the turkey gobble. There is no Friday Power Lunch. Nope. Get ready. There is nope. Because we will be taking a much needed break, like you should be too. But we will return on December 2nd, really a whole show about taking care of yourself. So how cool is that? And I'm excited to say thank you to the newest patron. We have Delvani. Is it Delave Minor, who's invested in us and has become a patron? Thank you. And thank you to all the patrons for a little bit of extra money every month. You could support our show. So if you like what you see, please give us some gravy. It tastes great. All right. So let's bring up Fennell Norton. I could see over there getting ready. Show messenger. Oh, my screen has like settled down. I think that was sort of some kind of energy spirit that came into my screen today. I don't know.
It's gone.
Yeah, it's gone. So what you thinking about, Turkey?
So I'm thinking about a lot of things. You said something and I loved it, which was enthusiasm for your crew and to show gratitude. And that's how I'm feeling right now. I am really happy to be a Democrat. This is, we didn't get every single thing that we wanted. We didn't get the House, but the margins that we lost by, I think is still something to be celebrated. And for CD2, we didn't get Elaine Luria, which breaks my heart. And I know that there are lots of folks on the phone and their hearts are broken too, but that's okay. I'm sure there are good things in store for us. But in the meantime, that means we celebrate what we do have and that we support and celebrate those candidates that we have and that we support and understand that it was really bigger than just CD2. I mean, I think that Elaine Luria would be really pleased about what happened in Pennsylvania, what happened in Wisconsin, what happened in Michigan, and all across the country. So we have to celebrate that. And most importantly, which I say this all the time, and I'm going to say it again, stop poo-pooing on my president, because we have to come together, and this is the team that we have, and we have to celebrate that team. And that just doesn't go for the president. That goes for our state officials. That goes for our candidates. We have to put our team on the field and get ready for 2023. That's how I'm feeling today.
I like it. It sounds like, good Thanksgiving talk on the couch, like football talk. So that's always good, a good pep talk. And speaking of that, I want to celebrate the bestest, biggest badass that deserves a lot of gratitude. And I would just like to bring that up. The Nancy Pelosi. Let's do a little celebrate. Oh, yes. Rip that paper, girl. Rip it. Let's go.
The gentlelady from California, Nancy Pelosi.
The primary legislation that we are putting forward. Pay equity, fairness to women in the workplace, the Lilly Ledbetter Act.
We will be joining those who established Social Security, Medicare, and now tonight, health care for all Americans. Lift the ban that keeps patriotic Americans from serving in the U.S. Armed Forces because of their sexual orientation.
I extend to you this gavel.
Article 1 is adopted. We'll cross a threshold in history, delivering articles of impeachment against the President of the United States for abuse of power. The American people deserve a government-wide, visionary, evidence-based response to address these threats to their lives and their livelihood, and they need it now. The president who would incite insurrection will sign the engrossment of the article of impeachment. We have passed historic, consequential, and transformative legislation. We are here today to sign the enroll the bill before it goes to the White House. We have the honor of participating in passing legislation for the people to build back better. The Build Back Better bill is passed. But for us, it's about not just about legislation, it's about values, and the values that this legislation represents for the people.
Hold on. That's it.
That is fantastic. Honestly, she is one badass. And I think that people should celebrate her legacy, but also celebrate, listen to this. She could have left and gone home, but she didn't do that. And so she will deliver her wisdom to whoever wants it, because I always say it's never either or when it comes to leadership, it's and.
Right. No, you're right. And with that, thank you. Let's just wrap that segment up. I, can't say it better than ending the celebration of such a historic leader. There's a lot to be proud about there. So thank you for now. Looking forward to you unpacking with Randy coming up.
And Aaron is here.
Oh, good. Aaron's here. So great. But we want to go to the grassroots update to another badass in the grassroots coalition. Louisa Borowski is here to tell us what's next. What are we doing? We need to get busy, right?
I mean, we always have an opportunity to stay busy in Virginia. And so I hope everyone is excited, is, really energized after the great work that we've done this election cycle. And you know what? There is more fun ways to get involved. So you've already heard a little bit that we've got some special elections coming up in Virginia. These are critical. These are opportunities for us to hold and also flip seats that will make it possible for Democrats this year to probably block some really challenging legislation that we will be seeing from the governor, but also to build momentum to our 2023 election. So this is that time to start getting on the doors, talking to voters and getting them excited about the fact that we get the chance to flip our House blue this coming year in 2023. And we have a real chance to hold that Senate blue with this special election in the SD7 seat. And you're going to be able to meet candidate Aaron ROUSE in a minute. So he'll tell you all about that. But really, it is so critical that Democrats win these seats in these special elections. Well, then we'll have the opportunity to have primaries again, and more people can join in the fight for democracy. But for these special elections, we really want to stay focused on these candidates who've already announced, who really have the opportunity and have the momentum to get these seats blue. So I'm going to put information in the chat about candidate Holly Siebold. She's running for HD 35, and you can sign up to volunteer for her campaign. And I'll also put the link for Aaron's campaign, but I'm sure he's going to do that too. Obviously, we've still got national work to do. So I'm going to share with you the link to my sheet that keeps changing. Right now, we still have ballot curing in California. If you want to get on the phones and talk to some voters and make sure that their votes count. And then there are about 1 million different ways to get involved in the Georgia runoff. I'm going to give you that link, which is the same as the California link. It gives you postcarding opportunities, phone banking, texting. You want to go down there in person? There's an opportunity for that too. So check that out. We need to go all in on that Senate seat too, because again, we need to bank Democratic seats both at our state level and at our national level, because that's really going to make it possible for us to block problematic legislation, but also to pass really important legislation. Lastly, we are getting ready for the Virginia legislative session, and we are putting together a letter from the Virginia Grassroots Coalition to our legislators highlighting our priority bills. These bills are primarily going to focus on bipartisan bills, as well as really important messaging bills that we want to make sure people are hearing about issues for the 2023 election. I want to let people know it's a short legislative session. Not a lot is going to get done, but there's going to be a lot of defense we're going to be playing, and there are going to be some key places that we can push forward and make a difference. Again, both bipartisan legislation as well as important messaging bills. And so if you are interested in learning more about that, I'm going to put my email in the chat. If your group wants to sign on to that priority bills letter, it's going to be going out to everyone for your review and sign on the 29th of November. And then lastly, I just want to let everyone know we are going to have a press conference in person back in Richmond this year. So get excited. It'll be that first week of the legislative session. So somewhere around January 11th. We're still working on the details, but we would love for you to come down to Richmond with us, hear about priority bills that the coalition is going to be working on, meet our legislators, and then do some advocacy. We'll have copies of our priority bills letter by that point, and you can go and talk to your legislators and tell them what issues are important to you and what role do we see them playing in leadership during session, making sure that our values are upheld this 2023 legislative cycle.
That sounds like a lot, but it sounds good. I'm excited about Georgia. I feel like people are really rolling in. Note Neighbors, which is a friend of the coalition, is really, I put a place to sign up to work on that with Note Neighbors. They're doing great work, great fundraising. So yeah, super excited. Real quick though, let's talk to some Youngkin talk. I feel like this, I know we have education people in the room that have been fighting the good fight. We have these elections coming up in 2023 for school board. And we see this stuff drop with the election standards. I know in the room, what's your thoughts on what we could do about pushing back against this? I know some of the elected had already spoke out. What's your take on what we could do?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good question. You know, in terms of like the curriculum standards, which we saw coming from the Youngkin administration, there was a ton of pushback, right? Lots of people made comments, lots of people showed up when there was a rally to show that they didn't support it. And the school board, the education board, even though it's run by Republicans that he has nominated, they have taken a step back and they said, oh, yeah, we didn't look at it that closely. Maybe we need to reassess, right? We're going to just have to keep doing that same kind of thing. So that means if you have the opportunity to sign a petition, sign that petition. If you have the opportunity to send an email to, people who are on the board making those decisions, send that email. And if you can show up in person for a rally that's being organized, show up. We need to keep pressuring the governor and the people who are appointed by him, because he has kind of gone off on his own little, journey to wherever, we're not sure, but we want to make sure that even the people who were appointed by him, I think they care, right? They care about if they are hearing absolutely not, Virginians don't want this. I think they will take a pause, which is what has happened with the curriculum changes, and say, okay, maybe we need to dial it back a little bit. So I think that's the best that we can do. So show up, sign up, all of those things can make a difference.
Right. I really feel like that we have a good opportunity here, especially as we go into 2023 with this school board stuff, to really, there's a little weakness that I see coming through in this administration. I think we as activists see and should take advantage of in this election. All right. Thank you, Louisa, as usual. And I want to bring up our next round of fun. Fennell Norton is going to introduce our first guest. So Fennell, come on up and let's get this party started. All right.
Okay.
I'm going to hand it over to you, and I'm going to go try to fix my turkey. There's a turkey in my screen. That bad turkey's acting up. So good luck. See you in a bit.
We'll fix that turkey. Well, come on up, candidate Rouse. I'm anxious to talk to you. Oh, hi, how are you? We didn't get to have Catherine do her introduction, so I am going to allow you to do your own introduction, and then we're going to talk a little bit about this Senate seat that you're going to have to win for us.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you for having me. It's good to see everyone here today. I am fired up and ready to go. I hope everyone is. This is a great opportunity, not only for the city of Virginia Beach and Norfolk, but for our Commonwealth of Virginia. to make sure we can protect our women's reproductive health care rights. A little bit about myself. I was raised in Norfolk. I was raised in Norfolk and grew up in the city of Virginia Beach. I grew up in a single parent household. My mom raised 4 of us by herself. I have older twin sisters whose birthday is on Christmas Day, and my birthday is 2 weeks later on January the 8th. Then I have a baby brother who seems to got away with everything you can imagine in the world. But my mother did a great job of raising us by herself. My grandmother was the one who cleaned houses in the city of Virginia Beach. And she was the one who basically helped my mother out through Thanksgivings and Christmases and the holidays and things of that nature. But unfortunately, at the young age of 49, she died from breast cancer. I was about 10 years old when she passed away. And so my grandfather, who was a U.S. Army veteran, he's from North Carolina, comes from a family of sharecroppers and descendant of slaves. He came to me and said, "You're the man of the house now." And he put a lawnmower in my hand and said, "Now go out there and make money and come back and help your mother out." Well, we did that, and he instilled a great work ethic in me. He always told me, keep God first, and your word is your bond. And so my mother thought it was safe for us to move from Norfolk to Virginia Beach. And so we moved to Virginia Beach, and I went to work again, Farm Fresh, Target, Virginia Beach Bus Garage, washing school buses and things of that nature, while always making sure I graduated from high school. We couldn't afford college. It wasn't even something that we talked about. My mother just said, "Yeah, I want you safe. I want you out the streets, and I want you to get your high school diploma." Well, thank goodness the good Lord saw it best to bless me with some football talent, and I was able to turn that talent into a full scholarship to Virginia Tech. I would be a first generational college student. And so at that time, my mother knew exactly what that meant, but I was just all excited about playing football. And it really didn't hit home until she dropped me off in Blacksburg and said, "This is your home for the next 4.5 years. Good luck, make the most of it." And so I was in Virginia Tech, and my freshman year in college, my high school sweetheart and I ended up having a son together. And so as you can imagine how scared I was. I wasn't necessarily afraid of my coaches. I was afraid of my mom. And so, but from that nature, it went from, "Mom, I'm making sure, listen, I'm going to get my college degree." And so throughout college, I would drive home every other week, and throughout the playing days, playing in these big games to see my family. So I understood how important it was to make sure I was there. As well, I ended up my freshman year, I came back to school and was a freshman All-American, and it led to me having an NFL career. In the NFL, I played for the Green Bay Packers, New York Giants, and the Arizona Cardinals. Before I ended, a bad car accident ended my pro professional career in Arizona, and so that led me into a life of service. You know, I wanted to come back home and let our community understand just how important it is to have an education, how important it is to have a skill, as well. It's not just about going off and being a form of entertainment, being an athlete, things of that nature, but education was the foundation of it. And coming from where I'm coming from, you know, it was important for me to represent. And so I had an open invitation in the General Assembly about 2016, where I learned just for 3 years. I didn't have a job, I didn't have a title. I just had an open invitation because people love football. And so I used that invitation to learn politics at the state level. And by that time, after 3 years, I felt comfortable enough to run for local office. And most people said, "Why would you run for local office? You know, local politics can be messy." And I said, well, understand something. If I can't make an impact in my hometown, I will be no good here at the state level. I want to make sure I can make an impact here. And that's what I went on to be able to do here in the city of Virginia Beach. Expanded the summer youth employment program by hundreds of thousands of dollars, supported that, implemented a new, and if you don't have the VB Connect app, please get that. It's sent to help government, streamline government as well. Was able to lead a really economical, enhancing, but also socially enhancing festival in our city, Something in the Water. You may have heard of it with Pharrell Williams as well. Was able to get that back here. but also build those bridges between our different communities, because we have such great diversity here in the city of Virginia Beach. And so when the SD7 became open, this open seat became available. And I want to thank Congresswoman Luria, because once again, I consider her a national hero. I mean, to stand up there on the January 6th and to fight for our democracy, understanding that the likelihood of her winning her seat with the way these lines were drawn was very unlikely. And so she still did that. And that's a woman of integrity. And I can't thank her enough for endorsing our campaign and being a part of the Team ROUSE. And so I understand that she actually won Virginia Beach. She won the city of Virginia Beach.
She did. She won Virginia Beach, and I'm happy to say she won our Northampton County too. So I'm excited about that. But I do want to ask a question about SD7, and we are very excited that you're going to be the candidate. I understand that Kevin Adams is the person who's going to be running against you, most likely. So can we talk a little bit about, why you think you're right for this seat, and what is your plan? What can you tell us about your strategy? How are you going to do this? How are you going to beat this guy?
Absolutely. Listen, I don't know much about Kevin Adams. I don't think anyone does. I think they just found this guy to run. But again, it's not about them. It's always been about us. What are we going to do to make sure we can turn this seat around, we can flip the seat, and we can keep our Senate majority, making sure we protecting women's health care, reproductive rights. And that is going to be the most important issue in such a short session right now. And it's going to be about turnout, right? And again, when I ran in 2018, I got the most votes ever in the Virginia Beach election history. And that's because I was able to work across party aisles and get things done. I've been in a minority on city council here in the city of Virginia Beach, and was still able to be effective. And that's what it's about, being effective, making sure that you can still get things done. And with our Senate majority and keeping that Senate majority, giving us some breathing room, because I think we understand what that's like in the Senate majority, where abortion rights is on the table. We have a couple senators across the aisle and the governor already saying that they're going to implement a 15-week abortion ban. And so, again, the stakes can't be even higher. But trust and believe, you have a great candidate with great name ID, a proven track record here on city council, and one that's very well respected throughout the entire Hampton Roads area.
Well, I tell you what, this is when I was speaking earlier about how important it is for Democrats to support each other and to turn out. We don't have time for anything. We don't have time for any mess. We just have to get to work and get our person in office. And it looks like that's you. So we'll all be going to work on it. Thank you so much, Erin. Thank you for coming today. Well, hopefully we'll see you soon. And now we're going to bring up Mr. Pherson, and we're going to talk about some very, very exciting things. So Randy Pherson, thank you so much for joining me. Now, here's where I want to start. You weren't one of those folks who said this is going to be a red wave. You had some thoughts and ideas about how 2022 could go. So I'm going to sort of give you the floor and let you talk a little bit about how you thought about 2022. And then after you're done, I'm going to ask you for some predictions for 23 and 24.
Randy, you're on mute.
There we go.
My background is basically doing analysis of what's going on overseas, and taking a look at what's going on domestically. I apply the same tools, and instead of listening to the polls and doing predictions, I like to look at what are the key drivers that are going to determine what the outcomes are. So what I want to do is just go over briefly. One of the techniques I teach is what if. So I'm not predicting what's going to happen. I'm just saying, but if in this case, the Democrats took both the House and the Senate in the midterm elections, what would have happened and how could we have seen it coming? So I said, what are the key drivers that are going to determine how people are going to vote? So I went back, I'll have 3 snapshots for you. One back in January, another in September, and then 2 days before the election, where I kind of said, what are the primary drivers here? So if you go back to January, I looked at 3 things. One was voting rights and threats to democracy, which made me feel good when Biden gave his speech. He was suggesting that he also saw that as a major driver. And I think that followed through as you went through the year. The other one was looking, I said, income redistribution, and are the middle class, lower classes getting their fair share? And the third one was looking at climate change. And there was looking at the youth vote, thinking that there may be something there that we're not looking at. If you flash ahead, well, unless you did, so I did indicators. So if you can do slide number 1, said these are the indicators that you're not going to get a red wave, but the Democrats are going to sweep both houses. And 6 of the indicators seem to be hitting pretty solid. So if you're watching this over the course of the year, you'd say you've got to give the Democrats a pretty good chance of coming out nicely. The gray zone were things where some of that was coming true, but others were not. Trump was not indicted, and his senior officials were not indicted, but a lot of other people were. Not too much on his other 2 stories. And then the indicators that I had that were definitely off the mark were the ones that the Republicans picked up, just made a large part of their campaign was looking at oil, gasoline, inflation. So go to the next slide. I went back and I rethought this thing in September, and I came up with a theory that really it's a battle of 2 scenarios. You had the pundit scenario, which is the economic pocketbook, and this is what's going to drive the election. I said, but I think there's something else going on underneath that. I'm looking at the key drivers, and the word existential threat kept popping up all over the place. And people were actually feeling that their lives and their livelihoods were threatened, and the left and the right. So the left, we had, of course, the big issues over abortion. You had the right to vote, threats to democracy, gun safety in the schools, and climate change. All of these kind of had a visceral impact on people and how they lived. And that could be a lot more important than how bad is inflation today. On the right, this society doesn't look like where I live. There's societal change. They also had their side of the abortion, gun control, and immigration. So they were seeing. So you had a lot of intensity, which actually then explains, I think, why you had very high turnout. But as I was looking at the dynamic, it was how are these 2 dynamics going to play off against each other? So
Randy, a quick question before we go on. So looking at these 2 scenarios on the left and the right, is there any way that you give power to which one you think is stronger? So as you're looking at these and you're looking at the intensity, what is it that you look at to determine how strong something is?
Well, you go back and then you build your indicators and say, if gun safety in schools is important, then are we going to be seeing this in the national media? Are they going to be talking about it? Are things going to be happening? So you develop indicators of where you see these things happening or not happening. And how are people reacting? What is driving the discussions? And what are actually, I would say, what are people who are running for office hearing when they're out there talking to people? I think that's a lot more important than what the pollsters are picking up or what the pundits are talking about, because they're the ones that are closest to the campaign and closest to the people who are going to do the actual voting. So let me just flip up to election day. And I said, well, how do we think the election day is going to come out? So the next slide 3. And this is what I saw coming through is female registration was not getting much attention. And those are hard numbers. There are a lot of women who went in and registered. And we know why, because of the abortion issues. Then I really got frustrated because I have done a lot of work on history, and history was not a predictor for this election. And that was a huge theme in the press. This is always what's happened traditionally. Well, this is not a traditional election. I mean, we're facing the collapse of democracy. We have Trump's legacy. A lot of things made history kind of irrelevant to what was going on last week. I also was looking at the youth vote, where you've got 4 major drivers impacting youth. And for me, it was no surprise that we had a very significant turnout of young people. And then lastly, I was interested with some of the reports that Democrats raised a lot more money than the Republicans. And they put the money down in the grassroots, which was really important because they had a lot of money and they put it where it mattered. So those things made me think that it would look better for the Democrats. And when the voting came, a couple other things here were contributing factors. I won't go into them too much, but I think the one thing I maybe didn't focus enough on was the exhaustion with Trump and that issue. So let's go to so looking at those, what I saw was, and if I had to, I said I would not predict because it was way too complicated, far too complex. But my hunch was that the Democrats would pick up 1 seat in the Senate and they'd pick up less than 10 seats in the House, which was definitely not what people were talking about. And for me, as the results came in, it was kind of, well, it kind of validates the drivers that I had found and what I thought was happening.
So I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
And I love this statement, overemphasis on economic pocketbook issues, because typically we always talk about elections are local, blah, 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 blah. So my question is, that looks like that was important because there was an overemphasis on it, but it can be right? It doesn't have to just be local issues, and
that's, to me, that was one of the major problems with the pundits, is that they kept saying, what is the top issue? And economy is, I mean, you deal with that every day, so you're going to list it. But I did like, in hindsight, they're saying, well, they can manage more than 2, 3, 4 issues that they vote on. So I think most of us who are out there as voters said, there are 3 or 4 things I care about. We had to weigh them and decide how to vote. Obviously, inflation and gas prices are a factor, but those more existential issues, I think, is what really turned the tide in terms of the voting. And you brought out more people in some very close election races. But the fact that it was not just the economy or economic impact, these other things that were going on. The one thing that kind of frustrated me watching the game play out was there were things that could have been done, like the child care tax credit, if they had tried to make that come back before the election. Maybe that'll be a 24 election issue, is that there are things that would give the middle class and the lower classes a lot of economic relief. It wouldn't be taxes per se, but it would be some of these programs that would build back better. That would have had, I think, more of an impact on the outcome as we went forward. My bottom line after going through all of this was that basically, I had this, here we go, the last slide, is looking ahead. For what I saw is that the people who did well and pulled out the surprises were the ones that had the ground game. They focused on the grassroots, and they're looking at what the local people need and what they want to do. They're not worried about the national dynamic as much as what do you need in your constituency? How do you help the people in your district? The other thing, I think there's a huge opportunity if the Democrats want to do better to push on the youth vote. They got 65% of the vote this last election. If they can get that higher and they can mobilize there, the thing is, obviously, if you get the youth, you're going to keep the youth. So from the Democratic perspective, that would be a recommendation. And you have the issues that that are going to motivate the youth. Then lastly, I suspect, I was worried that the disinformation campaign would be far more effective than it was. And my hunch is that it was pretty much contained to those who are the true believers. And it didn't really, a lot of the disinformation didn't spread that far, and other people kind of knew it for what it was. So as you look forward, I think we still have to find ways to deal with it. We've done a lot of work on it internationally. And the one argument is, if you're trying to deal with disinformation, you don't just keep saying they're lying or they're wrong. You've got to give a positive narrative that replaces their negative narrative. So that's what needs to be done to deal with disinformation writ large, is you need to take the oxygen out of the disinformation, replace it with your own oxygen, saying this is a positive scenario, this is a constructive scenario, and let the destructive disinformation stuff just fall off the table. People just stop listening to it because they don't want to listen to it anymore, and it's negative. So you want to be positive in your approach.
Well, I think that's pretty awesome. I think that that candidate Aaron Rouse just got what he needs to do for 2023, and I think we just got a lesson for 2024. I do have one really quick question for you. As you talk about, looking across in other countries, it was really interesting to me that France elected Macron, and he had really low ratings. And I thought that was an interesting dynamic that no one talked about, because even though he had low approvals, he still did extremely well. So that was another, I guess, a point to say, hey, his approval, as well as what has happened historically, doesn't mean that it's going to happen to us in 2022. And to your point, it did not. Any final thoughts you want to leave us with?
Well, one last thing. I just read an article I'm going to publish on Monday, and I'm going to make available to everyone, which is how do we deal with the current situation? And I think Kevin McCarthy is going to, if he becomes elected, I'm still not convinced he's going to be elected speaker. But if whoever's speaker has to deal with the Freedom Caucus, and they have been the brake on progress for almost 2 decades now, as you go from as the Tea Party on up, and he's going to have a horrible problem dealing with it. So one idea that I came up with is maybe we could have a grand compromise and create a government of national unity, and take 80% of the Democrats and maybe 90% of the Democrats, 80% of the Republicans, and say, we're just going to get together and we're going to make things happen that the public wants. What are the issues that 2/3 of the world, of the country wants to have happen? And if the Freedom Caucus threatens to block it, then you throw in 20 Democratic votes to make sure that a good compromise bipartisan bill gets passed. So could you actually have the Democrats come to the Republicans and say, if you don't use McCarthy, if you don't let the Freedom Caucus have their power, find a moderate Republican, I was a huge supporter of Dick Lugar, is someone that everybody respected. So take a Dick Lugar, and put him in as Speaker of the House, or go outside the House and find somebody who's on neither party and make them the Speaker of the House and say, we're going to have a grand coalition and we're going to do what America needs to be done. We're going to focus on negotiating, an abortion bill, an immigration bill, things that gun safety in the schools, things that you can probably get a consensus around, and basically say, if you're on the outside, on the fringe, we don't care because you're not a player anymore. So can you neutralize the fringe and then have the center, start running the country and getting some things accomplished?
I think that's a great idea. My husband this morning had the idea that they should come together and put Liz Cheney in, but I had a little tiny bit of issue with that, but I think your idea. I mean, maybe you can go talk to Speaker Pelosi before she goes, because that is a grand idea and she does do grand things. Yeah. Thank you so much, Randy. I appreciate it. Catherine, I'm going to hand it over to you, and you might have
I want to say thank you too to Randy. I know you've had decades of work in this area. So I love critical thinking. I love analyzing. And so I think you'll enjoy our next guest that's going to be up. I'm interested to hear from another political guru scientist. And if you remember Rachel BITECOFER, she was been on her show a couple times. And now where's Hammy at? Is Hammy home? The dog, unmute yourself again.
Hammy's hiding in the bedroom. He has a barking problem.
Hammy has a barking problem. Okay. If you follow Rachel, you'll know that she has a dog and we love the dog, and I have a new pup too. So I'm just excited. And, we've been together now since 2017 in the grassroots, been through all you made history in our world by really, with your thesis of negative partisanship. You predicted the blue wave in 2018 when the boys were predicting otherwise. So you have hey, Hammy, you have a place in our heart because you think outside the box. So I just let's just go in right with what your mind is turning on right now. I mean, you said this was a red puddle. Let's talk about just this whole election and where you are right now with it.
Yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about what should have happened. Okay, the average midterm effect is negative 26 seats in the House and negative 4 Senate seats. I have been operating for 2 years under the assumption that if I allowed that to happen, and that's what would happen, that it would take out the Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania governorships with it. So, for obvious reasons, I didn't put a target on those 3 states for 2 years and tell everybody, hey, we don't have a free and fair election in 2024 without administration of these states. So it wasn't something I focused my public commentary on, but my entire strategy was designed to blunt the midterm effect as much as possible. And I could not be more delighted by the blunting. That said, I want to make something really clear. All the strategic shift that we did, and you can see the campaigns that ran aggressive negative partisanship strategy. Well, they won, right? The losers are Florida, North Carolina, Ohio, all the places that ran traditional Democratic messaging and strategy. And it without the catalyst though of Roe being eviscerated, it would have been much harder. In May, I put out an article on my blog talking. I wanted to put it in the New York Times, but they wouldn't take it because it was so partisan, right? Talking about what it would take, what a midterm effect is a thing. It's not something that is used to suppress voter participation by pundits. Okay, it's an actual empirical trait, and it's one of the most strongest traits and patterns in American politics. So, getting people to understand, hey, we have to be serious about this midterm we are going to be favored to lose everything. And we must develop a strategy that accepts this as a premise and then is designed to thwart it, right? We can't spend 3 or 4 months pretending like things might be fine this one time on a midterm effect and hope for something better. But ultimately, having the Roe evisceration is the thing that helped make it real for people. I think it would have been a lot harder to get these campaigns talking about threats to democracy and on that message if we had not had Roe eviscerate like that. And I knew it was going to be a major catalyst. The night it happened, I said, this could change everything. And I suspected that an equalized enthusiasm gap would be our best hope always of surviving the midterm effect. And when that of course, that equalized right after Roe, and it stayed equal all the way through the cycle. So, I do want people to understand, though, that I think we would be looking at 26 seats and potentially Wisconsin gone, at least the Wisconsin governor, no Arizona wave, if we had allowed that midterm effect to just roll through. So I'm really excited that we've kind of developed and shown proof of concept that we don't have to let the parameters and the fundamentals shape us. I got the idea that we could disrupt a midterm effect from watching Republicans blunt their own in 2018, and that's why they overperformed in the Senate and the governor races that cycle. So I'm really jazzed to be where we are. I take Elaine's loss really hard. It is, she's such a great public servant. What she did in 2 years is a 20-year career. And, but I do think you guys should feel pretty good about what Virginia was able to do and what it means for the poor Republican Party coming into the 23 cycle.
I totally agree.
The next governor cycle, 24.
I mean, right? I totally agree. And I'm interested and when we talk about redistricting from New York, Ohio, we saw the nonsense in Ohio, right? Where they ran on maps that couldn't be, that they were been challenges on. They were not the right, they weren't maps that were considered legitimate by the court, and they still ran on those maps. New York redistricting, and in Virginia, Luria got redistricted. And so with that, what's your mind on that with the redistricting or some of the challenges we have? And then really when we looking forward, there's some thoughts around that,
So I was not a fan of nonpartisan redistricting, not because I don't care about redistricting, not that I don't want to live in a world where there's no partisan gerrymandering, but because my job is to consider our competition versus the Republican parties. And if we de-gerrymandered, which is right now, frankly, if nobody had ever put a citizen initiative ballot in California or Virginia, we would control the House of Representatives. Okay. So, fixing campaign finance reform, fixing gerrymandering, these are things that must happen, but you don't fix them while the House is still on fire, because you need the power to be able to fix it. And Republicans have a huge advantage if they're the only ones partisan gerrymandering, if they're the only ones getting billionaires and dark money behind their, grassroots organizing and stuff. So we really have to get serious, because as I was telling some friends at dinner last night, the price here is not Obamacare gets eviscerated or whatever. We are talking about lives. I'm operating on the assumption that if I fail in the effort that I've undertaken with other people, I'm not on this alone, by the way, that people will die. Like, there will be pain and death, and especially in our most marginalized communities, because they're not going to come for the white folks first, guys. They're going to come for people of color, disabled people, LGBTQ people. And so we, because of the stakes, have to accept that we cannot disarm ourselves and go high. We must fight this movement with everything that we can bring to bear.
Yes. And like Jamie Harrison said, we have to be a workhorse, not a show horse. And I think that, that we have to go in and really run hard. And I agree with you totally. I feel like we did disarm ourselves a bit. We always are trying to be like, but do the right thing, be fair and good. But in this case, like you said, you can't disarm yourself when the other party has all these loaded weapons looking at you, right?
But you certainly can if you want to go the way that the German civilian system went. Okay, yes. We can certainly do that. We can certainly wait and hope and whine and pray for better times and say we're not going to sully ourselves and do the things that they do. But I am telling you, the moral superiority feeling that comes with that is going to feel pretty damn empty when they start rounding up Latino people.
Yeah. Well, we already saw, I mean, was it the cruelty with the abortion overturning and what we saw in Texas? And I mean, what we see in these states, that there are no exceptions, but the reality, what's happening to women and girls now, if that's not cruel enough to show you how low they're willing to go, they don't care about you. They don't give a shit. Right. And that's true. So with that said, I mean, one thing I have to say, I appreciate is reading a lot of course, I always love to read. I'm a subscriber to your Substack. Let's just say, everybody, you want to learn some stuff, subscribe to Rachel. She's great. In Virginia, we suffered that loss. Man, that meant a lot when we suffered the loss of the governorship, and the enthusiasm gap that you talked about. I feel like now in Virginia, we finally maybe caught up some. I think we feel that we do have this wind at our back. So what are some takeaways going forward, or some, thoughts about as we go into 2023, specifically in Virginia? I think all eyes will be on us. What are some takeaways that you want this group to know, how we should be thinking about this election?
Now, then they should be structuring their messaging in a way that frames the Republican Party as a threat to the voters' health, wealth, and safety, not, abstract character flaws like, oh, he's paid for abortions, whatever. Those things matter to like sully someone's public approval, right? But at the end of the day, where the Terry McAuliffe team, who I think, may have followed me and bastardized my strategy, but I certainly had nothing to do with that strategy, because if I had, it would have been run very differently, right? What they tried to do was make an abstract argument. This guy's a jerk. He's friends with this other jerk, and you should just not vote for them because they're jerks. That is not what I argue should be done with messaging, or the messaging that I create. And the reason why is because there's no buy-in for the voter. Guess what? Normal people will tell you in a poll that they hate corruption, but they're not going to vote on it. They're not going to vote on it because for 30, 40 years since Nixon, the Republican Party's right-wing machine has shit on trust of government so much and clouded the space so much on corruption that your average person, even an average Democrat, that votes but isn't like us, has this perception of total system corruption, right? Like it's a symmetrical corruption problem too, right? And so at the end of the day, what the voter is thinking when they hear that is, yeah, well, aren't they all corrupt? Aren't they all like that, right? So you have to make it about threat and salience, hyperbolic language. You have to be willing to say stupid shit like, Republicans caused inflation with an investigation, right? Yeah. Obviously, Joe Biden didn't cause the gas prices to go up. He didn't cause inflation. Republicans understand that the civic literacy level of the American electorate is such that simplicity is how you win a rhetorical war. And it's very easy. Cause and effect, right? They don't do cause and effect, but there's all these nuances, and actually it could be this. They just say Joe Biden caused gas prices to explode. And we have to be able to meet that fifth grade rhetoric with our comms. And I got to tell you guys, if Roe had been eviscerated the year before, I think that you guys would have been able to hold off Glenn Youngkin. I think the fundamentals are such that if we were to take away Roe, run everything constant for 22, we'd be looking at 26, 25 seats in the House and so forth, okay? So that one structural change has really advantaged you guys in these 23 elections. And so what you want to be doing, there's no governor's races, are all down ballots. You want to pull in the governor animosity as much as you can against these Republican opponents and make them synonymous. So if you hate Glenn Youngkin and you want revenge, you can't get revenge on Glenn Youngkin, but you can vote against his state legislature, right? And he's made it really easy because of the radicalism that, of course, he brought into office, because he was always a radical disguised in a sweater vest, right? And that's why I wanted to brand him as a radical before he got the power to strip Martin Luther King Jr. out of our textbooks.
Oh, you said it, and we're listening, and I'm glad you're here, because I know what we know is come January, he wants to drop this abortion ban, which I'm interested in wondering, will he really do it? I feel like that that will just sort of give more power on our side to really show what can happen in Virginia and why we do have to hold this threat back. So I appreciate you being here. I hope that we'll stay in community, come back again. Maybe we'll be next year talking about how we took everything back in Virginia, and that's what I'm going to say. So thank you, Hammy.
Okay, bye.
Hammy. Bye, Hammy. Bye, Rachel. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for having me.
So this is it. Okay, it is Friday before Thanksgiving, and let's hear it for the turkeys, Robin. What do we got? Any turkey talk? Okay. I kind of hear the turkey. I think, did you strangle the turkey over there, Robin? I'm not sure if we heard it. Anyways, I just want to remind everybody that no show next Friday because we will be taking a break. I hope you'll be taking a break too on the couch. And then we'll be back December 2nd with a great lineup. It's going to be about investing in yourself and wellness. And I mean, it's incredible. And on December 9th, we already will have Simon Rosenberg in talking more about the election strategies going forward. We will not stop. Unstoppable badasses in this group. We will keep it going. We just really want to make sure you do enjoy your time off. Okay. So thank you for the patrons in the room for investing in us. We really appreciate it. That means a lot, puts our turkey on the table. And for our newest patron, Delvani Minor, is it D? Is that D in the room? I think it could be D. Anyways, subscribe to our social media and you will get a recap email after this, all the links in there, making sure you can support Georgia and SD7 in Virginia Beach. And then of course, please stay around for the after chat. Thank you to the awesome team that you see in this room: Robin Warner, show wizard, Stair Calhoun, ambassador of Buzz, Fennell Norton, show messenger, and Heidi Dragneff, social media diva, Dennis Orsinger, our graphic designer, Zoom helper, Laura Martinez, and of course, Michelle McKinney, always keeping us straight in the room for helping everybody that's new to the show, and our content concierges, Julie Galdo, Alvina McCall, and Sally Reynolds. And for all of you in the room, thank you for all you do. Have a super duper holiday and stick around for the after chat. Gobble, gobble, gobble.